In today's video, we're going to be changing the oil in my 1999 Toyota 4Runner. We're going to need a 12mm or 14mm socket, and then we've got an oil filter, funnel, and 5.5 quarts worth of oil. I also have a couple pieces of cardboard and paper towels for the inevitable spill. Now to start, we have to remove the skid plate. So we need to remove the 4 12mm bolts, so 1, 2 on the front, and 2 on the back. So here's 1 here, and then the last one would be right over here, but I've actually lost mine. Bought the car that way, so we only have 3, so let's take those off. Alright. Now once you have your pan out, it's always good to do a once over to see if there's any fluid that has leaked onto the pan. It'll give you a good indication on the status of your engine, whether or not you're leaking any fluids. This one is pretty dry, so we're good to go. Okay, so now that the skid plate is off, we can get to our 14mm oil pan bolt. And do be mindful, when you go to loosen it, you may have a washer attached to the bolt. So now I've got my catch pan down below, and I'm ready to remove the bolt. And we'll see if this little ratchet will do the trick, or if we're gonna need some more leverage. Okay. And this is where it can get to be a little bit messy. And it's nice to have gloves. And now we'll just let it all drain out. And if you're lucky, it'll drain 5.5 quarts. Something tells me a little bit is burned and a little bit is leaked. But we'll see. And so now while we're sitting here waiting for it to drain, here's the bolt. And here is the washer, and this washer is pretty much used to bite into the oil pan itself and the bolt. It's usually made of a soft metal, and that way as you go and tighten down the bolt, it squishes and almost pancakes a little bit on a microscopic level, and it helps to keep the bolt from backing out due to vibrations while driving. Alright, so I went ahead and cleaned up this surface here and put the bolt back in. Now we're going to go ahead and torque it down to 27 foot-pounds. Alright, and there we go. So 27 foot-pounds. Now we can do the oil filter. Now the oil filter is a bit tricky in the 3rd gen, say in comparison to the 4th gen, because it sits all the way up there. There you can kind of see it, so it makes it a little bit difficult to get to, but nonetheless I like to reach my hand up there and start to loosen it to take it out. Okay, so I've already loosened it a good bit here. I'm going to try and show you taking it out just with one hand. I've got my catch bucket here below me to get some of the oil. Let's see if I can get this with just one hand. This will be a little bit tricky. And it comes out a little bit funky as well, I will tell you that. So the bigger the catch pan, the better. Alright, so we're catching it. Let's get back in there. And there will still be a healthy amount because the filter is, well, it's not tight. Wow, it's coming towards me. Well, that by no means was the smoothest way I've ever gotten the oil filter out, but you can see we had minimal spillage, and we're ready to clean up the area and install the new filter. Alright, and so here you go. Here's the brand new filter. You can see this is model number 90915YZZD1, and there's been a couple shifts over the years based on the manufacturer overseas, but nonetheless, this is the model number that I use for mine. Alright, so here is the new oil filter, and it does come pre-lubricated on the edge, that O-ring. If you want, you can put oil on it as well, but now we're just going to go ahead and realign it and screw it in. Okay, so I've got the filter back in place now, and I just use my hands. You can use an oil filter like wrench or band to tighten this down. I've never had a problem with my hands tightening it down. I've never had any leaks from down below right here in the housing. If any leaks ever arise, they're typically from my valve cover gaskets. With this being such an old vehicle, that is a common problem to have, but my hands work just fine for tightening it down. So now we can remove our oil filter cap. I use conventional oil, and I do use 5W30 like the manufacturer recommends. You can use synthetic if you like. In some colder climates or warmer climates, use a different oil as well. It is purely up to you. Just make sure you know what you're putting in your car. One other fun factoid is if you look in the inside of your engine oil cap and you see some sort of like frothy, it's kind of like a light brown color on the inside of your oil cap, you most likely have coolant leaking into your engine oil, and it is most likely a head gasket issue. This is something that I've seen in the past, so it's just something to note. Okay, now I've got my funnel in place, and I'm going to go ahead and start putting in the oil. And this is just Quaker State 5W30 conventional motor oil. So now I've filled it with 5.5 quarts of fresh oil. I'm just going to pop on the cap, tighten it down, and now clean up. And before we put the skid plate on, we'll crank it up to make sure nothing is leaking. Okay, so now that that's good to go, we'll go ahead and put the skid plate on, which is typically easier with 2 people, but we're going to do it with just 1. And it's easiest to get the front in with the hooks and then put the back in. And so just like that, we are good to go. I have to pick a couple things up, but other than that, I'm pretty much done. I've got 5.5 brand new quarts of motor oil in the vehicle. It's 5W30, brand new Toyota filter. We've got the skid plate back on. So yeah, as long as there's no leaks, you are good to go. It only takes 20 to 30 minutes. It's even faster if you have 2 people and all the supplies ready to go. So hopefully this video helped you guys out. If it did, feel free to give it a like. If there was something that I missed, feel free to let me know down below. Other than that, hope you guys have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.